got John until 9. As you'd have heard there with the news and Vicky Norton, children in care are still being failed by Stoke-on-Trent City Council. And it could be years before things are turned around. I've talked about this before on the show, and BBC Radio Stoke Staffordshire political reporter Sophie Calvert has been following it closely.
Ofsted inspectors went in February of this year and had a lot to say, mostly about failings and delays for children in care. So the government appointed a commissioner called Eleanor Brazil to do her own report. That was published yesterday and again found problems.
Clearly there have been some children who have been let down where they and their families haven't had the support they needed quickly enough and effectively enough. And that is a tragedy for those families.
The council now has 3 months to partner up with a better performing authority to help it improve. Otherwise, the government could intervene. And that commissioner I talked about will be sticking around for another year. Stoke-on-Trent City Council says it will make the improvements. Here's Councillor Dave Evans.
I think bringing in that extra capacity to drive improvement will make it quicker than it would be on our own. I don't think on our own we could do it at the pace we need to, and I think we need to be really open about that.
And it's not going to be speedy. This report says it could take at least 2 years to turn things around.
We can speak now to John McGowen, who's the General Secretary of the Social Workers Union. Good morning, John. Thanks for coming on this morning.
Good morning, John. Thank you.
What do you make of this report, and what kind of impact do you think this is going to be having on families?
John, yes, it doesn't really make happy listening, does it? But I think as a good starting point, I think it's important to recognise the hard work that the social work team are doing day in and day out, 24 hours, 7 days a week in Stoke. But look, actually, as a starting point, they've offered 3 months for changes, but it'll be our view that's very unrealistic, because to implement such changes and to make a difference for another 3 months is a hard task.
The report says it's going to take at least 2 years to fix. What does that mean for local children in the meantime?
Yeah, well, it needs some substantial intervention to safeguard children, and that's ongoing in Stoke. I mean, if you look at the child protection and safeguarding issues, that will be protected. But if you compare it to other local authorities that went through similar changes like Doncaster or Birmingham, there's a lot of success stories, but that's taken a bit of time, John. But there's a great statistic in the report, and it highlights that 64% of the present management in social work are locum staff. So if you imagine that, the frontline social workers are being managed by, that's 18 out of 28 of their managers are temporary posts or locum posts. Now, that's not a great starting point if you're a frontline social worker, is it, John?
The report talks about social workers with caseloads, and this shocked me, in excess of 100 children. That just seems unmanageable. Well,
sometimes it's hard to analyse caseloads because somebody could be sitting with a huge caseload, but it might not involve significant intervention. But at the end of the day, that they've invested money into Stoke. But like I said before, other success stories where you've got Birmingham and Coventry, the success in their changes have been implementing good, significant management changes. And I was speaking to one social worker in Birmingham yesterday. They said that she's now looking forward to going into work because she can see the difference that she's making with children, and she's able to spend time with the children that she's working with. What I'm understanding in Stoke, speaking from social workers, that they're firefighting, they're dealing with the high-risk cases, but they've not had much time to implement and build up relationships with children who are presently in care or who are at the lower end. And that's where the investment should be, because obviously if the figures are going up, we need social workers to work at the preventative stage.
Thank you, John. John McGowan from the Social Workers Union on BBC Radio Stoke. John Akers at breakfast. Thank you for your time this morning. It's